You know, the Democratic Party is actually the oldest political party in the world, born nearly 2 centuries ago. But here's the thing. The party today would be totally unrecognizable to its founders. So how on earth did a party built on small government and states' rights evolve into the modern coalition we all know today?
Okay, just look at this. It's kind of wild. On one hand, you've got Andrew Jackson, a president who uses veto power more than all of his predecessors combined, specifically to limit the federal government. And on the other hand, Barack Obama, signing one of the biggest expansions of federal power into healthcare in American history. These two guys, they led the same party. The story of how one became the other is, well, pretty much the story of America itself.
So yeah, it was officially founded way back in 1828, coming together around its first major leader, Andrew Jackson. Its symbol, the donkey, you've seen it a million times, right? It's one of the most famous logos in politics. But the ideas that donkey represents, man, they have been on a truly remarkable journey. To really get where the party is today, we have to go back to the beginning, the age of Jackson. It wasn't just about him. It was about a whole specific vision for America and for the government's role in it.
The first Democrats were, at their core, suspicious of power, big power. They believed in a nation of independent farmers and artisans, and they saw the federal government in Washington as a direct threat to their individual liberty. They really distrusted big banks and big corporations, thinking they just favored the rich. So for them, the best government was one that did less, one that used its power negatively, with the veto, to stop what they saw as cronyism and government overreach.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to acknowledge the full picture of this era. Jackson's vision of liberty, well, it definitely did not extend to everyone. His administration was responsible for the forced removal of Native American tribes, including the horrific event known as the Trail of Tears. It was a brutal policy that stands as a stark, unavoidable part of his legacy, and the early party's legacy too.
So for decades, the party held on to this small government identity. But two massive, seismic events began to crack that foundation and ultimately reshape the party from the inside out, long before we get to the modern era.
The first huge fracture was slavery. By 1860, the party literally split in two. Northern Democrats nominated Stephen Douglas, who was for popular sovereignty, basically the idea that settlers in new territories should get to vote on allowing slavery themselves. But Southern Democrats demanded federal protection to expand slavery, and they nominated their own guy, John Breckinridge. This division was so deep, it split the vote and handed the presidency to the new Republican Party and Abraham Lincoln.
The second, and maybe even more profound shift, happened over several decades. You can kind of see the evolution here, from Jackson's limited government to Woodrow Wilson using the new federal income tax to reshape the economy. But the real revolution, that came with Franklin D. Roosevelt. Facing the Great Depression, FDR's New Deal completely flipped the script. This is where the party's core definition of liberty transformed. For Jackson, liberty meant freedom from government. For FDR, liberty meant freedom from want. And he argued that only an active, powerful government could provide that through programs like Social Security.
But if the New Deal redefined the party's economic philosophy, the 1960s would redefine its very soul. This was the decade that created the modern Democratic and Republican coalitions that we recognize today.
The 1960s were such a turbulent decade of change. The civil rights movement was demanding an end to segregation, and the Democratic Party was standing at a massive crossroads. Its response would determine its future for the next half-century.
President John F. Kennedy started with his new frontier, pushing for civil rights. After his assassination, his successor, Lyndon B. a Southerner himself, by the way, used his immense political skill to pass the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964. Then he followed that with his Great Society programs, creating Medicare and Medicaid and waging a federal war on poverty. The party was now fully committed to using federal power to create social change. And this right here, this brilliantly illustrates the political earthquake that followed. On the left, you can see a map showing the concentration of black voters in the American South. By championing civil rights, Democrats earned the powerful and lasting loyalty of this group. But in doing so, they alienated many of the white Southern voters who had been the party's bedrock for a century. The result is the map on the right. The solid South started to crack and eventually turned reliably Republican red, a realignment that still defines our political map today.
So how does all this history shape the party's platform today? Let's look at the core issues that define a modern Democrat. The data tells a really clear story.
On the environment, there's been a dramatic shift. As you can see on this slide, the percentage of Democrats who view climate change as a major threat has just surged, making it a central, non-negotiable issue for the party's base.
The divide on gun control is just as stark.
An overwhelming majority of Democrats support stricter gun laws, believing that more guns lead to more crime. It's one of those issues where the two parties hold almost mirror opposite views.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the demographic data. It shows this powerful connection. The more college-educated a state's population is, the more likely it is to identify as liberal. Higher education has become a key predictor of political alignment within the party.
So the crucial point is that this long, winding history has produced a very specific and diverse collection of groups that now call the Democratic Party home.
The modern Democratic coalition is a mix of young voters, racial and ethnic minorities who were brought into the fold during the Civil Rights era, unmarried women, secular or non-religious voters, and, as we just saw, those with higher levels of education. Holding this diverse group together is really the party's central challenge.
And as the slide shows, that coalition is in a constant tug-of-war. On one side, you have progressives pulling the party further left, advocating for sweeping changes like a Green New Deal or universal health care. On the other side, you have moderates pulling towards the center, arguing for more incremental reforms and a pragmatic approach that can win over independent voters. This internal debate often defines the party's direction.
From Andrew Jackson's agrarian ideal to Lyndon Johnson's Great Society and beyond, the Democratic Party has shown an incredible capacity for transformation. The only constant seems to be change itself. Which leaves us with the question, as the country continues to evolve, what will the next reinvention of this nearly 200-year-old party look like?